Thanks for tuning in to the Living Wisely Show. My name is Allegra Hall. I'm your host today, and I'm back with Sarah Jakes. She's written a great book, Lost and Found. We've already talked about this, but I want you right now to go on to sarahjakes.com. And I want you to look at this book. I want you to look at her webisodes, and you're just going to be encouraged by the great work that she's doing. So Sarah, thanks for staying with us for the second segment. I wanted to talk to you about something you wrote in the book. You talked about avoiding the tale of the pews, and you talked about the church court. What does this mean?
Well, when I was in children's church, you know, we used to play this game where you whispered something in someone's ear, and then by the time it made its way through the circle, the story was completely different. Right. And I thought it was just a game that we were playing in children's church. And then as I grew older and was in adult church, I realized that they're playing the same game, but this time they're facts, you know, and there's someone's real story. And by the time it gets to the other side of the sanctuary, the facts have been distorted. And so when I learned that, I had one main goal, and that was to stay out of the rumors or the tales of the pews, as I call it in Lost and Found. Because at the end of the day, whether it's true or false, it's someone's story, you know, and it can be quite painful to hear something that you're trying to work through, you know, displayed throughout the whole church. But that task would end up being quite difficult for me.
I was reading your story talking about being a teen mom, but what got me, or what really struck me, was when you went to your friends for some help, you know, for some advice, and to hear the teen logic. And it's just amazing to me, you know, that some were saying, oh, Sarah, you know, you don't have to keep this baby. But there was something already inside you at that tender age that said, no, I'm keeping this child.
I felt like I could do it. And I think that the person who told me that I didn't have to keep the baby had this misconception that if I gave the baby away via adoption or had an abortion, that I would just get off the hook. And the reality is that you don't just get off the hook, regardless of what your situation is, that it's not an easy one to make, and that you still carry a scar from that, whether you have the baby or not, that we all end up wounded. And so I just felt like, for me, the wound that I wanted to tend to involved me keeping my child, and recognize and respect that that's not the decision that a lot of other people have made, and but that no one just gets away with it.
I remember being in high school, and one of the girls in our class was pregnant, and so they were coming together for Teen Logic, and people were putting in money so she could go get this abortion. And years later, when I became an adult, I realized what an abortion was. You know, I had no idea, but in your mind as a kid, all you know is that this is a word, and this is a way out, you know. But it's just amazing to me that you had that presence of mind and the grace of God over you to say, Sarah, don't do that. You know, this little boy, Malachi, is going to be a great little kid, and I just really commend you for taking that step.
Thank you. Thank you. It wasn't a decision that I came to easily or one that I took lightly, but I did decide that I could do it. And I'm not sure why I felt that way even at that age. I wasn't like the one who grew up saying, I definitely want to be a mom. I didn't have like this slew of baby dolls, but there was just something in me that felt like, this is the decision that I've made. This is the situation that I'm in, and the responsible thing to do is, you know, to move forward from here with my son.
I was also reading a part where you said when you gave birth to Malachi, you realized that actually having a baby was not the same as having a baby doll. It's nothing like that.
Not at all.
So, you know, I bring that up because I see these reality shows, the teen mom shows, and I hear these stories about girls trying to get pregnant so they can get on the show and audition, and you're thinking, I don't think they realize this is not a little baby doll you can put away somewhere. But it's just a reflection of the mindset. It's when I got pregnant, my biggest fear was I was going to get in trouble, because I mean, up until that point, you don't have much to compare it to, because you know, you missed a homework assignment, you stay at past your curfew or something, and that's trouble. And so you think that getting pregnant is trouble, and the reality is that it's life-changing, and there's no way to really prepare someone mentally for that at that age. And so it is a disservice to think that you can just get pregnant and get on a
television show, and then after that, you know, you still have a life, and you know, parenting is lifelong. It's not over at 18. You know, it's a lifelong thing. But I think that it will help when you hear stories like my own or stories like your sister's to recognize that this isn't something that you face easily, but it comes with transparency.
And my sister went on, she has her master's degree, and she's doing very well. Got to give a shout out to Rashida. You know?
Hey, Rashida.
Well, you know, there's just so much in your book. We could talk for 2 hours. There's just so much. But I wanted to move on quickly to toxic relationships. And just reading through your college years, I mean, you go in there 16 years old, 16, 17? Were you 17 at that time?
17.
And still, that's so young to get onto a college campus, and you know, everyone is kind of moving on with their life, and here you are coming in, actually finishing high school early, right? Like a year early. And what was that like for you to make that transition, to go from the safety of your parents' home onto college campus?
Yeah, I thought I was ready. I was very focused on what I needed to do in order to really provide for Malachi and myself. And then I got there and realized how many distractions come with college. And it was the first time that I was on a campus and no one knew that I was TD Jake's daughter, and the freedom that comes with being able to have your own individuality. And it all became a bit overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time. And so it gave me an opportunity to not be as focused as I should have been, and therefore I did end up in a toxic relationship, only because it was available and I wasn't as focused as I should have been.
Do you, you know, when you're reading your book, you look at the situation and you just know somebody was like, Sarah, don't do it, don't do it, girl.
I mean, I was like that. I think that we battle with that voice on the inside of our head, but I also think that there's a fear. Like, if this person accepts you and your insecurities and your brokenness, like, what if there is no one else? You know, what if this is Prince Charming, you know? And so you take on relationships, even though you know they're going to hurt you, out of fear that someone else won't accept you. And we end up, I wrote in the book that we fell in love with one another's brokenness. And in the end broke each other more than we had to, had we had both been healthy and whole enough to really understand love and relationships at the time. And I see so many people who do the same thing, where you end up accepting something that you know is bad for you because at the end of the day, it comforts you. And sometimes it's better to be comforted than to be challenged. And he was very comfortable for me at that time.
And you know, if I could just add this, you just touched on something that made me want to run around this place. Sometimes when you're lonely, you know, you think there won't be somebody else. So I'm going to take this person because at least he knows me, at least he can understand me. Loneliness is a very powerful emotion.
It is, indeed. And can convince you to do a lot of things that you wouldn't otherwise do. And I think that there's a piece also about falling in love with yourself, because when you really truly love yourself, you, one, aren't worried about who else is going to love you. You find other things to love about yourself, and eventually you look up and someone else is, you know, curious because you've fallen so in love with yourself that they want to fall in love with you too. But when you're afraid that that moment won't ever come, you look for people instead of looking for your purpose.
Excellent, excellent. Listen, I hope you've been listening to every word that's been coming out of Sarah Jake's mouth. I mean, she's given us some great wisdom. You've been watching her on the Living Wisely show. We want you to tune in, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more from Sarah Jake.